now it's kind of doing something. It's not exactly what I want because I don't really want it to be changing his arm. I just want it to be affecting like the white points. And I can use this bind node, which basically is a reference to another attribute on the geometry. And then I can use this mass attribute as basically a weight or a bias that I can mix between the point position that it currently has from the simulation or the solve, the point position that's this first input geometry, and then the bias will be that mass. And I know that it goes between 0 or 1. If it didn't, I might have to do some more things to ensure that I'm not getting unexpected results out of that.
Can you explain the bind on the
The bind is how you refer to an attribute from the geometry. Basically, you have these globals, or anything, whatever you want to call them, like the point number that are all default, but there's no variable here that's built in for mass. So to get that, you need to do something to kind of tell them that you're getting that geometry. Behind the scenes, underneath like the hood, this would be the same thing, and Vex is doing like the I at deforming, because this, I'm telling that it's a float, it would be like f at mass, and then it would know to pick up that variable. If you double click on their global thing, inside of it is all of those nodes that they're basically just setting up for you, and then kind of cleanly like putting them in there. But that's basically how you are like calling an attribute using this like node interface. So I'm just going to try to clean up that wiring a little bit so it's somewhat more clear as to what's going on. It looks like I had my inputs flipped around because it was only updating his arm, but I want his arm to like be freely controlled by the simulation, and I want it to only update his body. So if I look now, it's kind of doing much more what I would expect to happen. There's some things, if I had a lot more time, I would go and really like play with the values and stuff of the solver, but there isn't enough time. I'm just going to try to finish this demo as quick as I can. So the other problem that once it gets, I'm back just in the SOP level. I'm outside of the DOP network, but it's still bringing in this ground plane, which I don't want to happen. So if I go inside the DOP network, you can look at this geometry spreadsheet. You can see that I have a ground plane 1 and pop objects. Those are all the objects that I have in my simulation. So if I go back here to this number of objects, it has this star wildcard. So if I just do something like type in pop and leave the rest as the wildcard, it will notify him. You could explicitly type that all out and it would do that. You could also, if you really just wanted the ground plane, type that out explicitly and do that. But basically, this is like the same thing in a group node. It's the same syntax and everything. So now that I have him moving around, I can reuse this point deform node and what it's doing. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it down here, but this time the mesh that I want to deform is going to be the rest position, or just like the input pose of the simulation. The rest point lattice is going to be the input grains, and then the deformed point lattice is going to be the simulated grains. Then I'm going to try to see, sometimes all these wires will get kind of very confusing or misleading everything to look at. So when I'm building some of these things, I'm kind of always looking for like the best way to kind of lay these out or arrange them. Sometimes you're just working quickly and there isn't time, or sometimes you just have a really weird thing that you're doing, there isn't really a good way to lay them out, but if I can, I'll try to find a good way to do that. If I play the simulation now, you can see that his hand is kind of picking up that wacky motion. He's doing like a Michael Jackson, and then it's like his arm is just lost all of its muscle and bone tissue or whatever. And there are some things you could do to take this further, where you could keep this red part kind of procedurally expanding and filling his whole body, like his bones inside of him are doing that. I think there's like a spell in one of the Harry Potter books or something where that happens to people's bones and they vanish or shrink or something like that. But this is kind of all that I have time to do for this simple demo. I'm going to start saving the files so you guys have at least the files to play around with, maybe some brief demo time. I'll just keep explaining this just for one more minute. The other thing that's useful that people will do with this technique is if you have a character with like muscle or fat tissue that you want to simulate, like I could just paint a certain area of his stomach, and if it was a fat character, his belly would like start jiggling around. If it was like a backpack or something attached to him that you wanted to kind of swing around or look like it was being like carried by him, you could do a similar approach. Basically, I'm just trying to let you know some other ways why someone might want to set this up, and not just have like a zombie with a noodle arm. But I don't know, this is just like a simple process that could be applied to other things, is basically what I'm getting at. So I'll take this thing, get the folder, class 5 files,